coming up on live, just understand that this is a live production. Anything goes, anything can happen. So, if anybody out in the audience, if you're out there right now, could you send a, text or even a chat if you can hear us on that end of it? Okay, all right. Another fantastic, nice day down here in Fort Lauderdale. We'll probably start in about a minute and we'll go into the particulars then. All right. People can hear us. That sounds good. T minus 1 minute. And we are off. Welcome to the Hill of Justice. I'm your host, Jerome Hill, and I'm here with my co host, retired Sheriff Victor Hill. Yesterday, we uncovered the shocking failures that turned the Rainbow House into a nightmare for children it was meant to protect. But what if I told you the story doesn't end there? Today, we continue our conversation with Dr. Katrina Holloway, insider to Clayton County's highest offices, to expose secrets that they've tried to bury. You're about to hear what they never wanted you to know. If you missed part one, do yourself a huge favor and watch that video. You won't believe what you missed. Welcome, my brother, and
Hey,
welcome, Katrina. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Pretty
Can
good,
you all
pretty
hear
good.
me?
We
oh yeah.
can, we can.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We can. So, brother, take it away from us. What are we looking at?
Well, well, I'll tell you what. Let me do it this way. For those who didn't join us yesterday and haven't seen that video yet, let me just do a micro recap to where we're at. We got as our guest Dr. Katrina Holloway. She's the former assistant to the chairman of Clayton County, Georgia. Clayton County is where I was the former sheriff of that county. The chairman, for those who don't know, is the equivalent to being the county mayor. Um, what we discussed was a shocking case where, as you so articulately put, where a house that was supposed to be a house of shelter for kids was turned into a house of horror because the employees were sexually molesting the kids. And we exposed how the DA sat as the chair of that board, how she had relationships with those employees, and how she attempted to cover it up, and how also the chairman, who Dr. Holloway worked for as the assistant, was made aware of it and covered it up as well. So that's a whole story in itself. Well, we wanted to keep that story germane to that because we're doing a three-part series about the Rainbow House, and we're interviewing people who have direct knowledge of the cover up by the DA, the cover up of the chairman, and the botch investigation by the county police. But there's another story behind that. More happened. Katrina Holloway was also arrested, and that's a bizarre story in itself, which even ties into me in my case, because actually she was arrested and used as a scapegoat for them trying to get at me. So that's what we're going to discuss today. As unbelievable as it sounds, I think what the investigator that botched the investigation said, it was like a Netflix series unfolded before their eyes. Well, this is a Netflix series that's unfolding not just before the public's eye, but even me, where I'm directly involved. Because it's almost even unbelievable that people would go to that extent to come at me. So, with that being said, before we ask and hear from Dr. Holloway, let's play a news clip so people can get the feeling for what happened to Dr. Holloway.
Okay.
Now to a developing story out of Clayton County. That's where the GBI has charged a former secretary for the county commission chairman with sending fake threat letters to the chairman. Agents charged Dr. Katrina Holloway with making false statements to the GBI and filing a false report. Fox 5's Angelique Proctor joins us from the Clayton County Jail with more. Angelique?
Good afternoon. These are very serious charges that Dr. Katrina Holloway faces, both a felony and a misdemeanor in this case. Now, magistrate judge set bond for her this morning here at the Clayton County Jail, and she has already left the facility.
Ms. Holloway, you have been charged with 2 offenses.
Dr. Katrina Holloway is the now fired secretary of Clayton County Board of Commission Chairman Jeff Turner. She made her first court appearance Tuesday. The GBI filed warrants against the 52-year-old for allegedly making false statements and filing a false police report. The GBI says Holloway sent a threatening letter to Chairman Turner, but claimed it was from former Sheriff Victor Hill, who retired after his federal conviction. Many sources tell Fox 5 the 2 lawmen have been at odds for years. Holloway told Fox 5 she is innocent and will speak to us about this bizarre case when she bonds out of jail. Meanwhile, County Commissioner Felicia Franklin says there is a lot more to this story.
I believe that there is much more that they need to investigate.
Franklin says she has been interviewed by the GBI and also claims she submitted evidence and emails that will show Chairman Turner was involved in the threatening letter.
That the chairman definitely possibly staged that threat letter himself.
She believes it's all tied to missing money and questionable spending in Clayton County.
A question most recent was the use of $559,000 without any return on investment. Also, a question was COVID relief funds and how they were being used. There were not answers provided to our board, and our board voted to have an audit.
Clayton County DA Tasha Mosley tells Fox 5 she has recused herself from this case, citing a potential conflict of interest because she is distantly related to former Secretary Dr. Holloway. Now, in the last 30 minutes, Chairman Jeff Turner is responding to this story. He says, in part, I vehemently deny the allegations being made by Dr. Holloway and a few fellow commission board members. He goes on to say, I do plan to pursue civil action against Dr. Holloway and anyone else who chooses to purposely lie on me or scandalize my name. And of course, the GBI tells us they are still investigating.
So I got to ask Dr. Holloway, has that clown sued you?
No.
I wonder why.
And I wonder why too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let me
no
ask
lawsuit.
And let me ask you this. It's so beautiful to see your smile. But I'm just curious, how does it feel to watch that? Because I know what it's like watching false accusations and false crimes. Because I've experienced that, obviously. When you watch that news clip now, tell me what's your feelings and what do you think about it?
Well, to be honest with you, this is the first time that I've actually watched the entire thing because, number one, it was humiliating, embarrassing. You know, I've never experienced anything like this before. And to be betrayed and, just to be betrayed and all because of something that the former chairman and the DA concocted to try to get back at you, but then use me as the scapegoat because of their motives and agenda. Turner planning on to run for sheriff. He couldn't have that on him. So, hey, I just let my assistant take the fall for it.
So before we go into details, I think it's important we clear a matter up. Okay, one thing everyone needs to know that the district attorney that's involved in this, you're related to, correct? What's your relationship to the district attorney, Tasha?
Yes, and it was funny that she told the reporter we're distantly, related. So at this point, because of the Rainbow House, the child molestation, let's continue that narrative that we are distant because I do not want to be associated with her, no shape, form, or fashion. So let's keep that narrative going. But we're related on our mother's side. And my grandmother, her grandmother, are second cousins. May they rest in peace.
And that makes y'all what?
We're actually her mother and my mother, they're third cousins, so we would be fourth. So anything when I hear a distance, anything past like 10th, 6th, 7th, or whatever, but she can keep that narrative. We'll keep that narrative going because I don't want to be associated with her either.
Okay. And here's another thing that I think we need to do full disclosure so people can get to severity. You worked for the chairman, Jeff Turner. As the news said, it's no secret that he's been a political enemy of mine well over nearly 2 decades.
Correct.
But you're accused of writing a threatening letter to him and staging it so that it seemed that it came from me. Well, I think it's important the public understand what our history is, when we met, who your father is. And you and I never met until, what year was that we met? I know it was a year. What year was that?
It was 2019.
Exactly. That was the year that my grandmother passed. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your father is a man I once worked for. Many, many moons ago, when I first got to Atlanta, before I got on Clayton County Police, I did a brief stint at South DeKalb Mall. And your father was the chief of security there. As a matter of fact, he promoted me to assistant chief of security. So I've known your father all those years. And
since 1990? Was it 1990?
Yeah, well, since you want to throw those years out there, you're correct. Anyway, so, so I've known your father for years. Never met you. Then one day I get this email. You say you're the assistant of Chairman Turner, which was odd for me to be getting that email anyway, because he and I have always been at odds, unfortunately, from his behalf. I never really paid the dude no attention. But you tell me that you have a sympathy card for my grandmother, and that your father is King Holloway, which I'm shocked. And you asked me if I want to bring it to you. And I said, yeah, come on. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe she's a play daughter or something, because I've known this man for years, and he's like a second father to me. So there's no way he could have a daughter. So I was just curious. And I know you came over to see me, and I was like, now, whose daughter are you again? And you told me. I'll let you take it from there. Go ahead. So we want to make sure we got all these pieces.
I emailed you, and I, told you who I was and who my father was, and that I had a sympathy card for you. And I said, do you want me to inner office it, or do you want to have your one of your deputies to come pick it up, or do you want me to bring it? You said, no, bring it. And when I got there, I saw you was looking at me strange, like, okay, she kind of favors him a little bit. So then afterwards, you called my dad. And after you spoke with him, then he called me. He said, hey, Victor called me. He said, Victor was like, why you didn't tell me you had a daughter? And I said, what do you say? He said, you know how King is.
Exactly. I know how your father is. But the reason I want this story out there is this. I think it's very ludicrous for them to try and say that you had a motive to write a letter. I've known your father for years. I meet you right when my grandmother passed, and I appreciate you bringing that sympathy card. I was raised by my grandmother, so that was very hard hit. And we've never had any problems with each other. The relationship I've had with your father, even though he never introduced us. And so there's no motive for you to try and write a letter to frame me with.
I was supposed to be afraid of you. I was supposed to be afraid. I was supposed to fear for my life, Turner's life, and her life. I was supposed to be afraid of you.
So let's go into that a little bit, and then I know my brother has some questions you want to ask. So this letter, tell me how this came to be. The letter pops up, and then all of a sudden, they're saying you wrote the letter.
Correct.
And they lock you up, and they do absolutely nothing to the chairman. Tell us about that.
Okay. There were some prior incidents that happened before, and after you were suspended, Turner stated that you still had too much power in the community, and that you had too much power over the Board of Commissioners, and particularly the 3 female commissioners. And when when his powers were taken away, then the CFO was terminated, then something else happened. He said the GBI and the FBI needed to get eyes on you. Again, but you had already been suspended out of office. And so maybe like a week and a half later, the letters showed up. I got one, he got one. One was addressed to me, one was addressed to him. And the contents in the letter were the same. But anybody that knows, and it was the running, joke in the county that if you want anything to get to Turner, make sure Dr. Holloway gets it. So, everybody knew that he would get. So I received one, he received one. And so, but when I came back from lunch, it's rare that I got mail because all the mail would come from him. So, and it happened after, of course, it was after the COVID. And so I had a mailbox outside my office, but I never did bring it back into my office. I just kept it out. Okay, email, letter, open it up. I saw it and I looked. So I went into his office, and by that time he had a lieutenant in the office that was assigned to the Board of Commissioners for Clayton PD. And I showed him, I said, yeah. He said, yeah, Turner has the same one. So Turner told myself and this lieutenant to take it upstairs to the chief staff attorney. The chief staff attorney, we took it up there to him. The chief staff attorney was like, this does not need to come to me. It needs to go to PD. So Chief Kevin Roberts. So what happened, we came back downstairs, told him what the chief staff attorney said. Then he reached out. He had the lieutenant to do what he needed to do to do the chain of command of the letters. And so it went to PD. Then I think like the next day, Turner decided that he wanted the GBI to investigate. So he reached out to Chief Roberts, said, hey, I want the GBI to investigate it. And see, at that time, his friend, the former GBI director, Mike Register, was the director of the GBI at the time. So it was on a Monday that I think the call was made. On the Wednesday, 2 GBI agents came to the Board of Commissioners. So that was like a pull because GBI don't respond that quick unless it's an officer shooting or something like that. But for letters, no, they're not. It was I'm going to do this for my friend. And that's one of the reasons why the former GBI director is no longer the GBI director. I know the narrative that's been spun around, but that's not.
What did the letter say? What did the letter say?
I can't remember verbatim what it said, but I know there was something. I remember saying something about Durbin Brown, and it was saying "play pretty boy." And then Turner
who's the pretty
said,
boy? It must be me because it can't be him.
well, no, Turner said that he said he knew it came from you because you used to call him pretty boy.
Okay, let me say for the record, that's a lie. I may have called him things, but it was never pretty boy, but keep going.
So he said he knew that it came from you. And so the GBI, they interviewed me. Turner was all over the place accusing people. He accused the 3 female commissioners. So the GBI went to their homes and interviewed them. Then he accused your former social media manager. And then who else? Oh, and Carol Yancey, he accused her of writing it. So when the GBI was talking to me, at the time, I didn't, on the back end of it, he said, you need to get this up off of us. He said, because I can't have anything on me right now. And he said,
wait, hold on. Let's get the timeline straight so people don't get confused. So a letter comes in, it says something. You said to Durbin Brown, for people who are not familiar.
Yeah, I remember that Durbin Brown is somebody pretty boy.
Right. Durbin Brown is in an adjacent county, DeKalb County. He was a guy that ran for sheriff and was killed in his front yard for winning sheriff. So that's who that is for people who aren't familiar. But let me make sure I get this straight. When was it that Turner said to you, I have to get this up off me because we don't want to confuse people. When did that happen?
After they wanted to come back a second time and to interview me. So I think he started getting a little scared, like, okay, what's going on? So I told him, I said, well, they're going to come back and interview me again. And he said, well, I don't know what's going on, but it seems like they're thinking that you or I had something to do with it. I said, well, why did they think we had something to do with it? Because we didn't have anything to do with it. He said, well, if they come at you like that, he said, it's between Carl Johnson and Carol Yancey. And when they said Carol Yancey, because Carol Yancey was a strong supporter of his.
Right. And a friend of the district attorney.
Right. So I was real shocked that he wanted to, and so I asked him, I said, well, why Carol? I said, well, I can understand why you might say Carl Johnson. I said, but why Carol? He said, because all they got to do is just look at the Board of Commissioner meetings and see how she acts. She's crazy, mental, and deranged. I said, okay, because I remember when I first started, he told me to be careful with her and be leery of her because whoever the flavor of the month is, she will attack and go after. He said she was going after me at one point, but now, she seems to die down. He said, so they can just obviously look at that and just, say that her or Carl Johnson was the one that did.
So slow down 1 second. So how did I get to be the suspect if he's throwing all these other people around? How was it that they that it was out there that I wrote the letter, which of course we know I didn't, but how did that come to be?
I have no clue how you came to be. He said either he didn't think that you actually wrote it yourself or you dictated it through Carl Johnson.
But the reason of him staging the letter coming to him was to do what?
Get your bond revoked because he said you had too much influence and power over the ladies that sit on the Board of Commissioner because he couldn't get anything done. He was a lame duck. And when they voted on things like his power to be taken away, the audit for his spending, to fire the CFO and other things, the three ladies will vote together, and him and Commissioner Davis, it was a 3-2 vote. So it takes 3 votes.
So he writes this letter. Now he's throwing all these people names around, but he's trying to make it seem like it's me. How is it that you get arrested for this letter?
Well, see, what happened the second time that they came and spoke with me, they showed me, they said, well, did you write the letter? I said, listen, I did not write the letter. He said, well, who do you think? So I was telling them, the agent, who Turner told me. So I mentioned Carl Johnson and Carol Yancey. He said, well, why them? And I told him exactly. I said, because he said that Carl Johnson is Victor Hill's social media manager. He's attacked him on social media. Then Carol Yancey is because he said Carol got mad at him about something, which I wasn't aware of what it was. So he said she's vindictive and evil like that. And he had told me when I started, who the players were to stay away from. So he wanted to use her as a scapegoat, which I was very shocked because she was a strong supporter of his, and see, that's the back end she don't know about. And that's a lot of things people you don't know.
I got you. So how you end up getting arrested for this?
Okay. When the second meeting that I had with the GBI asked me, did I write the letters? I said, no. They said, well, how did these stamps come back to you? And when I looked, bells, everything, I was like, then that's where everything started clicking. I had 3 stamps, and Turner used to tease me about having stamps, and they are forever stamps. And some of the forever stamps have a barcode at the bottom. I've had those, I had those stamps for like a year. And I would use the stamps periodically to mail things out to older relatives or something because they're not into the social media or anything. So I always kept stamps, and I had 3 left. And I remember, and everything started coming back to my memory. I remember when he came into my office like that week or a half ago before those letters came out. And if he would bring letters to me, which he's done on many occasions, and he's asked me he'll have it face down, that's something personal of his, that he would mail stuff out. I've sealed things up before him. And if there was a county business, he'll just give it to me and everything in his county envelope, but some personal. No assistant is going to ask their boss, well, flip it over and let me see who you sending it to. He's done that. I've done that hundreds of times. And so basically, stamps came back to me because I purchased a stamp a year before that happened with my Navy Federal debit card. And so that is how they traced it back. They went to the post office, saw, they ran the barcode, this was paid, and that's how my name came about. Now, I'm not a dummy. I'm very smart, very intelligent, highly intelligent. There is no way that I would use my own stamps to send 2 letters that I know will come back to me because the stamps are going to be traced back to me. That makes no sense whatsoever. And they kept questioning me. And I even agreed to take a polygraph test. I said, I'll take a polygraph test. They said, Agent Steele was like, oh, so you will? I said, yes, we can do it right now. I can go, leave, follow you, and go do it. Never did come back for me to do a polygraph test to just say, okay, yeah, she is telling the truth. And look at Turner. They were too busy trying to convict me than to see what really was going on.
Okay, so they take a warrant out for your arrest. What's your interaction with Turner then? What does he do?
I was at home. And it was like on a Tuesday. So the agent called me that morning and told me, he said, well, I just want to let you know that we had to go ahead and take out a warrant on you. I said, okay, and everything. And so I called Turner, let him know. He was like, oh, Lord. And he said, okay, let me call and let me call them and see what's going on. And then he called me back. He said, well, I'm going to have to terminate you. And that was it.
Y'all didn't have any interaction? You didn't tell him, hey, I didn't do it. You're going to lose a job.
Of course I did.
Right. And what did he say? What did he say?
He said, well, I know you wouldn't do anything to hurt me. But here's the crazy thing. When the letter showed up in June, I wasn't, the warrants didn't come down until January the following year. It happened in June 2022. The warrant didn't come down to January 2023. So in between that time, if he thought that I wrote those letters to do something to him, every morning I would prep his coffee. Now, if I wanted to harm him, I could have did something to his coffee right before he got there. He never said don't do anything else with my coffee. I would prep the coffee, put water in there and everything. If I was that type of person, and if he thought that I was trying to harm him, he would have ceased and desist all of that, but he didn't do it.
Two more questions. And then Jerome, I know you got some questions you want to ask, and then we'll show that other video clip. Okay, so now you're arrested. I want you to show how the DA comes into this. The DA, who's your fourth cousin and also a friend of Chairman Turner. My understanding is before this letter happened, she calls you and tries to get you to do something. Can you talk about that?
Correct. When those incidents were taking place and when Turner mentioned that, the GBI, the FBI need to get their eyes on you, Tasha calls me. She said, hey, I need for you to do me a favor. I said, what? I'm sorry, I get a piece of hair somewhere. And I said, what? She said, I need for you to call the federal courts and see if Victor has who his probation officer is. And I said, probation officer? I said, he hasn't even gone to trial yet. So how would he have a probation officer? I said, he just suspended. She said, well, the federal courts work different. I don't know if it's called a probation officer. She said, but maybe a court monitor or something. I said, so if I call it, what is it that you need to know? She said, well, I need to know what would constitute revoking his bond because he's just being a distraction in the county. I said, negative. No, ma'am. I said, I am not calling no federal courts asking them nothing about Victor. I said, why don't you do it? You the district attorney. Well, that's why I can't do it. I said, well, I can't do that. I said, because you call the federal courts. I said, they record every call. And I said, if they want to know, okay, who's calling asking about Victor Hill's probation. Then they trace it back to me. Then I get called in asking why was I asking about Victor Hill's probation. I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. Mm-mm.
So you got the district attorney calling you, trying to see if she can get me put in jail
Until your trial.
until my trial, and because she said because I'm a distraction, whatever that means. Okay, so now you got that. Then this letter comes. Then all of a sudden you're arrested for the letter. What does the district attorney do after your arrest?
Well, what she did, she sent 2 former employees to come and talk to me because one called me. It was a former CFO of Clayton County. She called me. She said, hey, what are you doing? And at the time I said, well, I'm at Sonny's barbecue getting ready to get me something. I had already gotten the food. She said, well, put that up. Come meet me because we have some information that your cousin wanted me and the other employee to share with you. I said, okay. And so we met at Locust Grove. We went to Locust Grove and met at a restaurant that is no longer, they end up closing. And I hate that they did because it's good food.
Who is the CFO? What's her name?
Ramona Bivens.
Is there anybody else with her?
Yeah, it's a former employee, Dr. Shalonda Smith. Now, let me say,
Jerome, do you have that picture? Because I want to make sure we talk about the same people here.
Y'all got a picture?
Yeah.
Let me put my glasses on, make sure y'all identify her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you could stop.
Yeah, let me stop right there.
Okay, there you go. So who's who? Who is Ramona?
Okay, Ramona is in the middle with the all black with the gray hair.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Smith is on the end with the green with the hair in the bun at the top.
On the far right? And
yes.
And I guess I don't have to ask who's that's in between now. But who's that in between now?
Clayton County's very own Tier 1 District Attorney, Tasha Mosley.
Got you. Okay, so those 2 women, so we know they're friends because there's a picture of them traveling to California together. And those are the 2 that she sent to talk to you.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And go ahead, please.
Okay, and I want to say something to former Chairman Jeffrey Turner. I thought I was friends with Ramona, and I thought I was friends with Dr. Smith, but Turner had already told me to watch Ramona because she'll turn on you, she'll flip on you, and he had a lot of negative things to say about her. So I asked him, I said, well, why are you friends with her, and why is she the CFO? He said, oh, we got to keep her close, but we know how she is. She's not to be trusted.
And CFO stands for what?
Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, so what exactly did they tell you that the DA wanted you to know after you're arrested for writing a letter that they tried to say came from me, but they, of course, they knew it didn't come from me because they arrested the wrong person when they should have arrested him. But go ahead.
When we got to the restaurant, they told me that Tasha said that she wanted. There are 3 things I had to do, and that she would make the charges go away. 1, I had to say that I wrote the letter because I fear for my life, her life, and Turner's life, because we feared you. And I felt that that was the only way that we could get some help by doing that. And then secondly, I had to call my insurance company because the insurance stays intact for like 30 days after you're terminated. Mm-hmm. And so told me to call the insurance company and pretend like I was in distress so I can get a psychologist, psychiatrist or something, and then request some medication. Then I had to hire this attorney named Keith Martin. And then once I do all 3 of those things, then she would make the charges go away because her and Keith Martin had some kind of agreement. But I didn't do it. I just listened. Okay, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not copping to something that I did not do. I'm not playing crazy, getting on no type of medication, and I'm not hiring an attorney that. And so I did call Keith Martin just to see what he was talking about, because I knew that I was going to need an attorney. But for the entire hour, all that man did was tell me his whole career in the legal field at Clayton County.
So let me make sure, because a lot of people don't know who these people are. I actually had a citizen ask me yesterday. She watched the show yesterday, and she said, "Is that woman still the district attorney?" So we got to talk and make sure that we tell people who these people are. Keith Martin is a former solicitor years ago. He's a defense attorney. Known him for years. I think in his latter years, he represented just about everybody I fired. So I guess that puts us at odds. I don't know. But that particular group of the Victor Hill Fired Me Club, he pretty much represented them. So that's probably the connection you got between him, the district attorney, and the chairman. So to make this shorter and then go to Jerome, and we'll go to the next thing, we make sure we got this straight. You got the district attorney calling you, asking you, hey, can you call down there to see if we can get his bond revoked? Not because I'm doing anything illegal, but because she says I'm a distraction. Is that correct?
Distraction.
Okay. Exactly. Then you got this letter that pops up when you refuse to do it. And, they try to make it seem like it came from me. But then when the GBI starts looking into it and it's not working the way he wants, he starts throwing all types of people's names around. And then, because your stamp is on it, because you gave him a stamp to put on it, they arrest you.
Two stamps.
You gave him two
and
stamps.
I only had one
letters.
left, so I knew those letters that was mailed was my stamps were put on those letters.
And thus far, no one has investigated it any further and put charges on him for writing the letter or questioning him. The DA hasn't. And what the DA was trying to do is get you to play crazy and say y'all all afraid of the big bad wolf sheriff, and that's why you did it. And then she was going to drop your charges.
Correct.
But you refused to do it.
I refused to do it. That's why I still have charges. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm not copying to something I didn't do, and I'm not getting on no medication.
And ultimately, all of this, before we get to what actually happened. Well, we're not going to really go into my case because this is about you, but ultimately the objective, based on the conversations you heard with her, based on the conversations you had, because I don't want to lead you on this, I want your honest answer. Was she in turn involved in the charges brought against me?
Yes, they were. They were definitely involved in it, because she has an investigator that hates you. And I think you know who that person is. I don't know his name. I don't want to call out the wrong name.
You can call his name. Dennis Baker.
No, I don't know. What's his name?
Book. Dennis Baker. He's the one in the book.
That's it.
The guy that looks like he came from the movie.
I was going to say Brian Baker, but it's Dennis Baker.
No, it's Dennis Baker. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was aware that, first he came with the, I guess a subpoena or something. So she knew all about that. And then there was one time too, where you were using your Nixle to keep the community abreast on what was going on with you. So Tasha Turner and the sheriff in Butts County, they got together, wrote a joint letter to Nixle stating that you were using Nixle not for its intended purpose, because they didn't want you calling them out on Nixle. So they
didn't want me calling them out on being the ones that initiated this thing about the restraint chair, which we want to stay on your case, not that. Okay, I think I've asked enough questions, brother. I know you got some questions, and then there's a video we need to play.
So let me get this right. The former GBI director decides to go ahead and have his agents take a look at this. And as far as I'm concerned right now, I had I remember yesterday I was saying, well, we need to bring GBI into this. I guess you have a new director right now in GBI.
Yes, it's a new guy.
But what this reeks of is that, if I was taking a look at this as an investigator, obviously, yes, the stamps do come back to you, but who would have access to those stamps? So obviously you, right? We can't do elimination prints because it was contaminated because everybody in the world touched that letter. So we can't do that, right? So the next thing would be who would have something to gain to go ahead and do that. Um, that's a long stretch to have you gain something from this. The obvious um, big people who I would look at would be my brother Victor and obviously Jeff Turner. And then you do the process of elimination from there. How can they be so inept as investigators and agents, and then not even to look at this, because this is once again one of these investigations that can be solved in less than a month. However, they do this charging nearly 6 months after the fact. And you
Correct.
can't tell me at that point in time that you took all that time. So what I'm talking to the citizens of Clayton about is that, and to the state of Georgia, is that you have inept investigators, inept agents, and you're wasting the taxpayers' money with this. I don't know if it's because I worked up north most of my career that we're like this with our investigations, but down there in Georgia and sometimes down here in Florida, it is just so slow moving. It's like the wheels of justice are very, very, very slow. And it just means to me that either you're incapable of doing a real-time investigation, or you're trying to bill for this type of stuff, and you just let this keep on going on and on and on. I can't tell you the level of disgust I have for just this type of investigation for a goddamn stamp. And a stamp can go to anybody. And of course,
I'm his assistant.
Yeah, of course.
And my fingerprints were everywhere. All her fingerprints. I'm his assistant. My fingerprints are everywhere.
Sure. And of course, it would go back to you, right? And I'm looking down into the other end of it. But who has skin in the game? And this was entirely lost. Today, did they write you a letter of declination for these charges?
No.
So charges are still pending.
The charges are still pending.
They're still pending.
And then here's the thing. And here's the thing, when they interviewed me, they did not let me know that they was looking at me as a suspect. They did not read me my rights or anything. I'm thinking that I'm interviewing, just I'm trying to assist and help. They're asking me questions. And that's how those two false statements came, because I mentioned two names. But those were the two names that Turner gave me to tell them to look at them. Aren't
you also charged with making a false report?
Yeah, but they dropped that because Turner made the report.
Exactly. I want to make sure, right? Because you didn't make a report. He made a report, but yet, right. You didn't go report it to the police.
No,
he did. Right.
They dropped
you got
the
charged
report.
with making a false report. Yeah.
What is going on
Insanity.
over there? That is absolutely insanity on that end of it.
They dropped the false report.
I'm going to go ahead and put a prediction out here right now. You will never see the inside of a courtroom with this charge. Never. I'm just putting it out there right now. And two, the new director of GBI, take care of your affairs, because this is piss poor investigation to the highest order. And you guys know this. So I'm just hearing it on this end of it. And you got to be, you're out of your mind to even think and want to go ahead and put taxpayers' money to this type of nonsense.
There's two things I'm thinking about. If they drop the filing a false report, it almost seems like it's fruits of the poisonous tree, because, okay, without the report, how could she make a false statement?
You can't.
But I think the reason, and she didn't make a report. He made the report because his objective was to try and get at me. But, I think that part of the reason this hasn't gone to trial yet, one thing we know with this district attorney, if you're a friend of hers, she tries to find a way to drop the charges, and she holds it out. Like when we do get back to my case, there's a couple of people, Jarian Hawes and her husband, Robert Hawes, that I arrested, that their case never even got adjudicated until I came back from Arkansas after the false charges they levied against me. and it was done to protect them. And what she'll do is take those charges and she'll give it to a friend of hers who's a district attorney in another county under the guise that she's recusing herself, and then find a way to dismiss it. That's probably why we see Mia Kimba still out on bond, even though her son is serving time for molesting the kids that Tasha Mosley was a part of. So here you got a situation. She's charged with filing a false report, but she never filed a report. Turner did. So if it's a false report, well, then he needs to be charged with it because he's the one that filed it. And that has yet to happen. But we know he's also the one that wrote the letter.
I would do even one better than that. And Dr. Holloway, I would encourage them, please, can you continue? I want to see a courtroom. I do want to see a courtroom. This should go ahead. Instead of playing this out in the court of public opinion, let's go ahead and see what legal minds would have to say about this. And I can assure you right now that if I was the current GBI director, and if I could put two brain cells together, if I was the DA, this case would never see the light of day. In fact, it would be dropped immediately.
Well, the DA doesn't want this case to go to court because if it goes to court, then it'll come out in a courtroom that she tried to get her to commit insurance fraud and play crazy so she could drop the case. And it'll also be evidence that comes out that jurors will want to know, well, why isn't Turner sitting here being charged as well? So they're kind of doing that, let the dust settle and see how it could just ride out for a particularly long time. But the sad part is you got charges on this young lady's life, and it's obstructing her. She's lost her employment. She had to go through the embarrassment of being on the news, all because the district attorney and the chairman was trying to plot to come after me. And ultimately, the objective was, and I guess I'll let you say it, ultimately, what were they trying to accomplish by getting me out the way? And let me hear it from you.
They wanted their own person in that sheriff's office.
Right. And who did they want that person to be?
I think at the time it was Clarence Cox.
Right. And then who ends up running for sheriff? I mean, who ended up running for sheriff ultimately?
The former chairman, Jeffrey Turner, which he had told me out of his mouth, he never wanted to be the sheriff. So, of course, I was terminated at that time. And when my phone started blowing up, they was like, do you know Turner is running for sheriff? I'm like, no. He told me he never wanted because the sheriff's office was a mess. He didn't want to be bothered with that. But then he threw his hat in there. But the only reason why he said that is because he knew that if you were never suspended and pushed out of your position, he could never beat you. And then he felt that who you had supported at the time, that he could beat that person. And this is why I'm surprised that they kind of clicked up. You know, he talked about the current sheriff like a dog, called him all kind of illiterate, talking about his education level, his training level, but still, you did all that, but you still couldn't beat him.
Well, we know why he couldn't beat him.
Still couldn't beat him.
Exactly. Well, with that being said, Jerome, we got a very renowned journalist in Atlanta. His name is Rashad Richey. Probably the only journalist I could really trust there that will really try to get to the bottom of the story or tell the truth. And he had an interesting take on this, and you'll get to see more of it. You could play that video there.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a county commissioner, the chairman of the county commission to be specific, named Jeff Turner. Jeff Turner has fired his secretary, his assistant at the county, because according to the police, she wrote a threatening letter, mailed it to him, and acted as if it was the sheriff of the county. I know that seems extreme, but the claim from her is that the chairman wrote it to himself. Two other county commissioners have now said the exact same thing. That is a hell of an accusation. The chairman of Clayton County, a 23-year law enforcement veteran, and also the former chief of Clayton County, former chief of police. According to her, Ms. Holloway, it was him who sent the threatening letter.
The letter was designed in such a way to make it appear that former Sheriff Victor Hill did it. Chairman Turner wrote that threat to himself.
Now, here's where the story actually thickens. Let's put up a picture of Commissioner Felicia Franklin.
And even reported it to the district attorney of our county.
Clayton County Commissioner Alika Anderson came forward after the Atlanta Press's original reporting. We're not taking this lightly, she said. We're also finding out that there are other layers to this investigation of possible corruption that is coming out of the office based on things that we're hearing from our employees and many others. Anderson said on radio Tuesday morning. Let me say this, all right? This is a hot mess, obviously. But at the center of it was an attempt to make a threatening letter seem as if it came from a particular person. That particular person in question was Sheriff Victor Hill.
So let me just say this real quick. So let's think about this for a second. So you got the district attorney and the chairman, the same two we spoke about yesterday that covered up children being molested. Now they're together figuring out how do we get the sheriff out so he can become sheriff. So they come up, and that's a whole nother story. They come up with these restraint charge cases based on those two people I mentioned who had a campaign. That's a whole other story. We don't even want to get into that, right? But we will at some point in the future. And then even when they get this false indictment up there and these charges, and I'm indicted and I'm suspended, still not good enough. So they're trying to figure out a way, how can we get him in jail before his trial? So they get this letter, they come up with this idea to write a letter and make it seem like it came from me. Well, first, the district attorney, her first idea is to have Ms. Holloway call the feds and see if there's a way they can revoke the bond. Then when they can't get that done, they come up with this scam and it doesn't work and it backfires. So they let her take the fall. Let me just say this. I'm speaking on something I want to hear from you. You don't need to agree because of me, but we all know that Tasha Mosley initiated the federal charges against me. And we know Jeff Turner was a part of that because he wanted to be sheriff. Do you believe, based on the fact that she tried to find a way to drop the charges on you and not let anything come on him, do you feel that she was a part of that letter? And if so, why? What's your feelings on that?
I don't feel that she was a part of the writing of the letter. Okay. I don't. I think she came after the fact when it didn't work how he thought it was going to work.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So no, I don't think she was a part of the letter.
Okay, sounds good. But she tried to come up with a way to make sure he wasn't charged with it and drop the charges on you.
And to make it go away and to silence me and to drop the charges. I'm not admitting to anything because at the end of the day, see here this is the real reason that they wanted me to admit that I wrote the letter and that I had some mental illness is because they were aware that I was in the process of blowing the whistle about the Rainbow House and the Roman United and the African Children's Fund and the Hearts to Nervous Hope, all that corruption in one. And I was betrayed by a 11 Alive reporter that let Turner know what I was doing because I had given her the information.
Okay, got it.
That was the real reason.
First, I want to clear something up. You said the reason they wanted you to admit the mental illness. Admit to what mental illness? There's no mental illness, correct? They want you to fake like
no mental. I've never had no mental illness. Never. Don't have any mental illness at all. Okay. So they wanted me. See, they wanted to make it appear. Okay, she wrote the letter, so she got some mental illness, so she had to get on medication. So you can't believe anything that she's saying. That's the first rule. That when somebody didn't know where the bodies are buried, you publicly humiliate and try to destroy them and embarrass them and make them look as if they have some type of something going on mentally. That was so if I had said yes to all of that, nobody would believe anything that I was saying.
Okay, so let's make sure people understand this. You said you were getting ready to expose Roman United. There are people who don't have no idea what Roman United is. So we want to make sure they understand that scandal. So, you was going to expose the Rainbow House, which we spoke about yesterday, and Roman United. Brother, can you play a news clip of Roman United so they can understand what that scandal was and the chairman's involvement in that?
Your tax dollars. Clayton County commissioners are trying to get more than $500,000 back from a developer. The board told the county's economic development department at a fiery meeting that they feel kept in the dark on a project called the Roman. The $800 million proposed Lake City project would have included a county-run business incubator, condos, offices, a hotel, and an amphitheater. 11 Alive's Don White joins us now to break down what the county spent on so much money on, Don.
Well, Jennifer, Clayton County Fire Chief Landry Markison told me today the county paid the developer in 3 separate payments. The first is at $59,000 for a 7-page PowerPoint presentation on what an incubator is, a $200,000 payment for a 27-page design presentation, and finally a $300,000 payment for a 49-page seismic data presentation that totals $559,000. What's happening or not happening in this empty parking lot prompted this heated message from Clayton County Commissioner Dr. Alika Anderson to development group Roman United.
This presentation is terrible. It's pathetic. And that's why I brought you all here tonight, because, again, I'm going to tell it just like it is.
The developer came to the meeting to give commissioners an update. But instead, Commissioner Anderson says the county wants its $559,000 back.
If you saw the renderings that were sent in by Roman United, it looked like something that had been taken off a website and cut and paste and just thrown on a piece of paper.
The project was slated for development in this lot along Jonesboro Road, which has been sitting vacant for years.
It's kind of like an eyesore. It's just a lot of trash and everything, and it needs to be something, because there's not a whole lot on this street anyways.
I stayed in this area over 15 years, and ever since I've been living here, the plaza looked the same. Nothing really changed. So there's a lot of buggies and carts all over the place.
Commissioner Anderson says she'll get the taxpayer money back through any means necessary.
We got to put our differences aside, stop giving away money to these shell companies that don't exist, and do what we're supposed to do for the people. I want the $559,000 back. I don't care how y'all get it back. Anti-light them, sue, do whatever you got to do.
At the meeting, Chief Markison said Roman United missed the deadline of December 31st, 2022 to have all materials in. And just hours ago, the developer sent me a statement saying they haven't missed any deadlines or kept county staff in the dark.
Jerome, I got a question for you, man. Have you ever heard of a county commission paying developers $500,000 for a PowerPoint presentation? Something they're going to develop and they're going to make money off of, that we got to pay them for a PowerPoint presentation? Doesn't that sound crazy to you?
No, I mean, that's beyond that's I can't even talk. I mean, it's 7-page PowerPoint, $49,000 for a 7-page PowerPoint. 59. Excuse me. Let me go ahead. I'll create one right now. Hold on.
Yeah. $59,000.
Are you kidding me?
I can even do it now with artificial intelligence. But let me ask you this, Dr. Holloway, so people can understand this. That money, you have and still have information that the money was sent to shell companies. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. First of all, I was at that meeting. And Dr. Alika Anderson Henry now, and she is now the chairwoman of the county. She was correct. It's nothing but a shell company, because it turned out that the owner, Jaquez Roman, allegedly is the cousin to District 4 Commissioner Demont Davis.
That would be a surprise. That's another clown. Keep going.
Yeah, that is what is out in the community. And doing some investigation, they found that, Jaquez Roman was in the process of being evicted from his apartment, but you're going to do an $800 million development. And there were 3 PowerPoints. And the ones with the design, I promise you, on the screen, it had at the bottom shutterfly stock photo.
Wasn't this one of these shell companies in a foreign country or something like that?
Well, Roman United had some partner that's supposed to be, they were overseas or something, but that $559,000 was wired to a bank 3 different times in Dubai. And this is not speculation. I have the actual document that showed there was first time $59,000 was wired to a bank in Dubai. Second time, $200,000 Dubai. Third time, Dubai. $559,000 of Clayton County taxpayer money is in a bank in Dubai.
And the county has yet to get it back, correct?
No, because let me tell you, they drew up that contract that did not, that the county cannot recoup any money for anything that they do towards the project. So there was a clause in there. They made sure that there was a clause. So whatever money that Roman United got, it can't be recouped.
Who's the attorney that did that? Who's the attorney that overlooked that?
I think that came from the economic development, because that whole deal went through the economic development.
Okay, so you got these guys that they get this money, and one of them is allegedly related to one of the county commissioners, DeMont. We know Jeff is all in the middle of it. Okay, so now, was there ever an investigation by the district attorney, the ones supposed to be standing for truth and justice the American way? And did they ever try to investigate and get to the bottom of that? Okay, well, I guess we won't go there any further. All right.
No.
Okay, I got
that
you.
Is no in all caps, bold, italicized, underlined, highlighted. No.
Right. Well, I guess if she's going to cover up him writing a false letter to frame me, I doubt seriously if she's going to go after him. And even her infamous investigator, Dudley Doolittle, or whatever you call him, Dennis Baker, he couldn't even figure this one out.
I mean, they knew what it was, but they just they investigate who they want to investigate. They put charges on who they want to put charges on. But when you in the clique, and then when you do what they say, Simon says do this, and you do it, then hey, you're protected. But when you someone like me or like you that's not afraid to speak out and come hell or high water, we're gonna stand our ground. We're gonna fight for justice. And I would stand with anyone that if you've been wrong and you seeking justice, and I do my investigation and I found out that you are I will stand with you because I'm not afraid. I'm not one of those scared African-American people that's afraid because, generations before us, well, you can't fight the government. Oh, yes, you can, because the government is a person and people. And when more people get out of their head that you can't fight for justice, no matter who it is, more people come together, the stronger you are. And I'm fighting this by myself. But they know not to come for me. Don't know. You've already done too much. Stay in your lane. Don't come no more.
Get this straight. You're arrested for a letter the chairman did. He's no charges against him.
No.
Okay, there's this thing out there about Roman United. The DA's office is not looking at that. They're not looking at the fact that he didn't report it. Of course, we know they can't look at that because she was a part of it. We did that with the show yesterday. And thus we have this web of corruption in Clayton County that includes a DA. Jerome, I'll let you take it from here, man.
Yeah, I'm just taken aback. I could tell you Clayton County is tore up from the floor up. I know that they have a strong leader now. At this point in time, Alika's in there now, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Dr. Anderson Henry, she's
Okay.
in there now,
She's
but they're
in there.
giving her hell.
Well, yeah.
Who are they giving her hell?
That's to be expected. But if you taking a look this from a $30,000 foot view, you're starting to see the tentacles of a wayward former chairman, and you're seeing what has to be tantamount to blind justice. from the current DA. At this point in time, I'm comfortable in saying that, and I'm going to look right into the camera and saying she needs to step down immediately. There is no.
She does.
She
does.
at this point in time, she's done more harm than good to the county. She's inept, and certainly she has too many conflicting or interests in the county, and certainly, her office. I mean, she's disparaging it left and right. As far as GBI is concerned, you have a new director there, so this will be a perfect time for that director to go ahead and assert they're what they should be doing is at this point in time taking a look at the totality of the circumstances that are going on and being able to say, hey, guess what, we do have some lopsided situations here, and it needs to be investigated and reinvestigated again. So at this point in time, I have no other words, just to say that DA Mosley, it would probably be in her best interest to step down.
Well, it
Yeah,
would
she
be,
does.
but we got to be realistic. She ain't gonna be able to find a job nowhere else, so she's not gonna step down.
Well, no,
I
I
mean, it's
wouldn't
She's
not
agree
like
with
not.
it's not
that.
like
No,
she's
no,
a
no,
real.
no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Some of the
But
videos that I saw her
uh,
dancing like a dancing bear,
she
there's
could.
a job. There's a job.
That's right. We might could get her there.
Yeah.
So,
Who put up those
so,
videos? That's crazy.
but
She's dancing like a bear. What's going
so
on?
she put up those videos. I
Oh,
think
okay.
she's trying to be the dancing DA. But you
Okay.
know what? There's 2 or 3 other points we need you to bring out before we bring this to a conclusion. It's related to my case, but you got direct knowledge of it. Okay. You read my book. We know that it was Tasha Mosley that asked the feds to come and make up this case about the restraint chair. Okay. You actually had some conversations with her about this. And I want you to talk about that, for instance, as especially, first of all, she's friends with the judge that had my case.
Oh,
And
yeah. Let's talk
right.
about that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Let me
Judge
talk
Ross,
about that.
yeah, let's talk about that. And
Okay,
Judge Ross'
everybody
husband used to
listen.
work for her, but go ahead. Okay.
Everybody listen. Now, this is going to trip you out. When Sheriff Hill trial was going on, Tasha called me, and she was like, "It don't look like they're going to convict him because they got this this holdout juror." I said, "Well, I don't know." And so days kept going, and so she said, she called me back maybe the next day or like 2 days later. We had this conversation. She said that the judge is going to reach out to this juror's family and to get this guy to take his medication. And then, like, when she told me that, right hand before the Heavenly Father, that 2 days later, they found him guilty. So it makes me wonder, was this man really on medication? Did they really reach out to his family? That would be something that somebody needs to investigate. And if that is true, how did District Attorney Tasha Mosley know that? How did she know that they was going to reach out to the lone juror's family and tell him to take his medication? But if you see the clip, this man, they bullied that man because he just looked so fearful. When the reporters were talking to him, he said they was hollering and screaming at him and just like bully him into, getting on board with finding Sheriff Hill guilty.
For people
So that needs to be looked into.
Right. For people unfamiliar with the case, when my case went before a jury, it stayed out 4 days. And it should have been a mistrial, but we understand why it wasn't a mistrial. Again, we found out that the federal judge, Judge Ross, is friends with Tasha Mosley. Her husband used to work at the district attorney's office. When they came at me years ago, making up more ridiculous charges, just as ridiculous as the one they did now, and got away with it this time, saying that I stole my patrol car 5 times, but he was there during that time. So you got these relationships here. And, you really gave some insight into that. You gave some insight into that. What did she tell you about knowing Judge Ross? I remember you was telling me something about that.
She said they were friends, and she met her through her husband because they worked together at the solicitor office. Then she became solicitor. Then he worked for her briefly, I think, when as a DA. But she said they met through him.
Did anybody ask for her to recuse herself?
You know, that's a whole nother story. I brought that up to my attorney at that time, and you know what? That's another show we'll have to do.
Okay.
But quickly,
she should have recused herself because
she should have.
Not only that, she's Facebook friends with the guy who ran against me for sheriff. Right.
Yeah.
You can see it. We got pictures of it. They're Facebook friends. So she's friends with my political opponents, friends with the lady who did Tasha that brings this. Her husband used to work at the DA's office there. And this is the person. So when you look at this matter of law now that's going up before the Supreme Court, it's no wonder why no one ever looked at that and said, hey, there's no law, there's no established law against what he did. There's nothing to say that that's illegal. Well, any other judge would have looked at it and probably would have dismissed it. Well, we know she wasn't going to dismiss it because she's friends with Tasha. And they're friends with people who are trying to unseat me. Now, I want you to tell her the story that you're talking to her, and then when they finally bully this guy, and then he gives in, and then it's a conviction. Tell the public that story for us, please.
Yes, well, the day that you were convicted, myself and Chairman Turner and security, we was in another jurisdiction at that county and mayor's state of the county. It's like an event, just tell what's going on with the county. So, of course, I had my phone turned off. So by the time the event ended, I got in my car, turned my phone back on. And so she had called me several times. So then as I was about to call her back, she called me. She said, where you been? I said, I've been at the state of the county for Douglas County. And she said, he's guilty. He's guilty. She started screaming and hollering at the top of her lungs. She was hollering so loud, her staff came in her office and said, are you okay? What's wrong? She was like, he's guilty. He's guilty. Yeah, he's guilty. He's finally out our hair. He's guilty. And then she said, tonight I'm going to go home and get effed up, but I got to stop and get me some peach Kettle One. And I'm not a drinker. I don't know any of these alcoholic beverages. So I know some people might find this funny and hard to believe. So when she said Kettle One, I'm thinking about kettle popcorn. I'm like, they got peach kettle popcorn? And I said that to her. She started laughing. She said, no, fool. She said, alcohol. I said, oh, she said, I'm going to get effed up with my peach Kettle One and I'm going to sleep good. And she said, I might be late going in tomorrow.
I'm surprised she didn't say a child from the Rainbow House.
You know what's interesting? These
celebrated.
We got, they drink cheap liquor for some reason. Now, one in Fulton County was talking about cheap. What was she was saying? She was
Grey Goose.
Grey Goose, and this
Fulton
one
Grey Goose, Clayton County, Kettle One. What does your district attorney drink?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, but see, and I want to say this. When Governor Brian Kemp, who is a Republican, appointed her, I guess he figured Clayton County is a tier 1 county, so let me give them a tier 1 district attorney. But he accepted the recommendation from the outgoing.
I got to speak in his defense now. I people, I don't have anything against him. And let me tell you why. Because
I don't have any problem with Governor Kemp.
But let me tell you why I got to speak in his defense. I'm not saying you do. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people was like, well, he's suspended. Well, he was lied to. He don't know the facts of this case.
No, he did.
Right. Just like he doesn't know anyone in Clayton County. So when a position came open, he's going to ask the elected officials, well, who do you think will make a good person? Or he's going to ask the outgoing DA, who do you think could take your place? Well, the outgoing DA recommended her. Why? Because the outgoing DA already had a plan to make money from her. The outgoing DA goes and creates a law firm and then starts handling forfeitures for the DA's office, as if though the DA's office is not capable of handling forfeitures, and gets a cut of the money. So that's the reason that that DA no doubt picked her, not because she thought she was bright. And so you get this recommendation from her. You get a few other elected officials to write letters saying it's her. What does he know? So he appoints her. So Clayton County never really truly elected her. She's appointed. Then when the next election comes, no one runs against her. Then another election comes, no one runs against her. So she's not really truly chosen by the people. I mean, if you don't have any opposition and someone appoints you to the office, you're not truly tried and tested and chosen by the people. They have no choice. And like I said, I had people who watch this podcast and read my book, and they don't even know who this woman is. So
let's go back.
I got to say, I don't think that he said, you know what, let's pick this lawyer because this is a brilliant lawyer. We already know she's not the brightest, but that's okay. It's okay if she's not that bright. The problem we're dealing with here is the deviousness, the lying, the corruption, because there are people who aren't that bright, but they're bright enough to hire people who are bright and they do great things. We're talking about a person that covered up child molestation, that covered up a crime that had something to do with you and tried to do something different. But, you know, that's what we're really dealing with. And unfortunately, that's the person that was recommended to him. And that's how Clayton County got stuck with her.
Okay.
Yeah, I was making a joke about, Governor Kemp. He didn't say any of that because Governor Kemp I don't have any issues with Governor Kemp. But one thing that I will give him kudos for is, and I'm going to go back to Jeff wanting to be former chairman, Jeffrey Turner wanted to be the sheriff. When you were suspended, he had me to craft a letter to send the letter certified, regular mail, and email. And he had me calling, trying to get to the governor's office to get a meeting because he wanted the governor to appoint him as the sheriff until another. But Governor Kemp ignored him. Governor Kemp just let the law do what it do. He didn't respond to him or anything.
Well, he had no.
And then
another good thing Governor Kemp did.
But here, listen to this. He had since the governor ignored him on that, he sent another letter asking the governor to give him the power and the authority to appoint somebody as the sheriff.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
I know that. The governor ignored him. Governor Kemp is not stupid now. He's a very smart man. He's not stupid.
So there's one more important point we got to cover. Governor Kemp did something else we can all thank him for. He was part of creating legislation to put together a group of people who can investigate and remove DAs. We definitely need that because we got some crazy DAs here in Georgia.
I know.
Okay. She fought against it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and she fought against it. Okay. So they formed this group, and you filed a complaint with this group. Do you have a copy of that complaint? You can read us and read what they said to you.
Oh man, you would ask me that to pull it up.
Well, if you don't, paraphrase. You made a complaint to them, and tell us about the complaint.
Well, I made a complaint.
You're right.
Yes, I made a complaint with the it's called the Prosecuting Attorney Qualification Commission, and they operate just like what is called the JQC for the judges, which is the Judicial Qualification Commission. And the Judicial Qualification Commission, they are very powerful. They can take a judge down. They can request to have their license suspended, revoked permanently. They have a lot of power. And they can have you to go to jail as well. And so this is what this Governor Kemp did, creating this. They're in the infant stages, is new. And so they're just getting started. They will be powerful like the JQC eventually. They got to get there. But what they have in place now, I made a complaint about everything. And they told me that due to the things that she did to me, they would have to dismiss my complaint because it happened before the commission was formed. But everything that I said and everything, I met the criteria and it was sufficient for investigation, but they had to dismiss it based on it happened before the commission was formed.
Well, some other
if it had happened during that time, they would be investigating her behind right about now.
Right. They saw the validity of it. It's just that unfortunately
they saw the validity of it.
Right. So let's do a call to action, brother. And I'll start out and I'll let you finish it up. First of all, there's more victims of the Rainbow House out there, and we hope y'all get justice. And like I said, you don't necessarily have to reach out to us. If you do, fine, we'll love to have you. Especially the parents. We know the victims can't get on, but we hope that you seek out all the remedies to expose this so that can be taken care of once and for all. What happened was wrong, and have a district attorney cover it up, participate in it, and that needs to be rectified. And the more come forward, the better. We also want to encourage anybody else who's had problems with this district attorney to seek out that counsel, the new counsel that Governor Kemp created, because she needs to be dealt with on that part. Clayton County needs a new district attorney. This district attorney needs to be removed. And just on the child molestation alone, it needs to be done. Take me out the picture, take Dr. Holloway out the picture. But then again, here we got an innocent woman that has been charged with something because the DA is trying to protect her friend. We got 2 other innocent women who tried to report the Rainbow House, and they were arrested, and the charges had to be dropped, all because the DA is friends with the molesters and had relationships with them. So I hope that this is the start, so that people can reach out to the appropriate sources. If we can help, we can. But if you can reach out directly to the appropriate sources, you may have more knowledge of things that this district attorney has done, and can start the process, because she could do a lot more damage if she's allowed to stay there for another election. If she survives that long, despite the things that she's done with this Rainbow House, I certainly know that if someone actually ran against her, there's no way she could survive. The only reason she's still there is because she was appointed and no one ever ran against her. So it was handed to her. And, that's what happens when you get people placed in positions and they're not duly elected. And then they can't prove themselves because they're not worthy, but yet they stay there because nobody runs against them. Clayton County has a horrible district.
Sheriff, real quickly, somebody texted me and asked me what was Tier 1. Can I quickly tell them what Tier 1 is?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. You're talking about Tier 1 county? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. In the state of Georgia, I don't know if other states do, but in the state of Georgia, the state put counties. The state of Georgia had 159 counties. And all 159 counties are assessed according to household income, education level, economic development, and so forth. And they rate them from Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 3 is the best that you can have, and Tier 1 is the worst. Tier 1 means that you are a county that has no economic development, the educational level, and people are living below the poverty line. But the sad part about it is, in Georgia, there are 13 counties that are considered the metropolitan Atlanta. Clayton County is one of the counties that is part of that metropolitan. Clayton County is the only county that is in the Tier 1 status. All the other counties is in Tier 2 and Tier 3. And Tier 1, most of those counties are rural counties. They're rural counties, they're agricultural, farming counties. So you would expect them to be Tier 1 because it's not going to be any major economic development, education level, or whatever, something like that. But it's a shame. You got a metropolitan county that is Tier 1, but yet you all are stealing and being and setting people up in lawsuits and all of that. You're draining the people, the homeowners, the businesses of Clayton County, but you don't care.
I'm glad you said that. Let's end on that note. Now, brother, I'll let you in. Okay. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Okay. We know that Jeff Turner was at the helm for the last 12 years. And no one can attest to anything significant that happened under his leadership. Well, then you get all of these scandals, and like you got Roman United, you got the African Children Fund, where it's very, very clear that he was there funneling money into his pockets. And that needs to be investigated. That's a simple investigation if somebody would ever get a hold of it. Okay, so you got that going on. So he's not really working to develop. He's working to see what he can get for himself. Then I've been saying this and I've been preaching it or whatever. When you talk about crime, when you talk about out of control jails, you usually can trace that to the catalyst, not the sheriff, not the police chief, but to the DA. The DA sets the stage for all of that. When the DA starts prosecuting people for doing their job just for political reasons because they think it can get a press conference or they think that they can get someone out of office to get someone in, you end up with areas like Clayton, you end up with areas like Fulton because they're so busy trying to go after politicians, they're not focusing on the real criminals. And then because they're a part of trying to funnel monies like what we see going in Fulton County, they're not even paying attention to the corruption in government and going after those particular people because they're too busy trying to see if they can steer an election. So when you get that together, that's when you come up with a county that's in the 10 metro areas is the lowest economically developed. And so again, Clayton County is my county, will always be my county. I'm going to always continue to fight for Clayton County. And one thing we know, Clayton County needs a new DA, and we know that Clayton County needs more and better leaders that are going to actually look out for the people instead of look out for their pockets. Brother, you got anything you want to say before we head out?
You know, this goes out to the officials of GBI. Do what's right. The people they need your assistance. To the investigative journalists out there that are independent, take a look at this case. Take a look and verify some of the claims that are going on. And it's your fiduciary responsibility to go ahead and do this. I'm just going to let it go to this point right now. Share everything that you've just heard today with others. And I think that you could bring some synergy to this story. So with that being said, we were a little bit long-winded today.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that I wanted to go ahead and thank retired Sheriff Victor Hill and certainly Dr. Katrina Holloway for giving us a tremendous insight on the dealings and the inner dealings in Clayton County. I want to make sure that I ask everyone to please subscribe, like, especially comment and share this story. We need your voice to keep these stories alive and hold officials accountable for their malfeasance. And certainly with that being said, everyone have a good night and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holloway.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
All right.